Hello friends, this video on tissues part 6 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we will talk about complex permanent tissue. So what did we see in simple permanent tissue? They are all made up of similar type of cells, right? But in case of complex permanent tissue, the tissues are made up of many types of cells. So all the cells which constitute the tissue are not of similar structure. They all have different structure and different appearance, correct? So in this, the cells coordinate to perform a specific function. So even though the cells are of different types, but they coordinate with each other to achieve a common goal. So let us look at the examples of permanent tissue. The most common types of permanent tissue are xylem and phloem in plants. And this xylem and phloem together form the vascular bundles in plants. We used this term vascular bundles, right, in a previous slides. So xylem and phloem, these are the complex permanent tissues, and xylem and phloem together are known as vascular bundles. So now we will talk about xylem and phloem. We will see what are they, what is their purpose, why are they present in plants. Right, so this is how the internal structure of a xylem and a phloem looks like. So this figure is actually describing the internal structure of both of these complex permanent tissue. So if you look at them by look itself, they doesn't look very simple, right? They look quite complicated, and that is why they are complex tissues. So let us start with xylem and phloem. So let us see what is this xylem and phloem, because these are again two new names for you, right? You would have never heard of xylem and phloem. So let us see what are they. So xylem and phloem together constitute the vascular bundles in a plant. So you will often be using the term vascular bundles in case of plants. So this xylem and phloem together form vascular bundles. Now what do these vascular bundles do? They are actually the conducting tissues. Conducting tissues means, I'll just explain you briefly what is the purpose of presence of xylem and phloem in a plant. So you understood one thing, that xylem and phloem, they are both complex permanent tissue, right? So they have some specific function. So what is that function? That function is conduction. So what will it conduct in a plant? For example, in a plant, the food is prepared in the leaves. We all know that, right? By the process of photosynthesis, in leaves the food is prepared. Now, it is not only the leaves which needs food, right? It is also the flowers, it is also the stem, it is also the root. Everything needs the food, right? So there has to be someone who will transport that food from leaves to the other different parts of the plant. So that is done by vascular bundles. Similarly, water. Each and every part of the plant needs water, right? Now for roots, it is little easier to absorb water from the soil. So the roots can absorb the water from the soil, correct? But how will that water reach the other parts of the plant, like flowers or leaves or fruits? So again, that is done by conduction. So that is again done by vascular bundles. So the purpose of vascular bundles, or the purpose of xylem and phloem, is conduction. They conduct food, water and nutrients to different parts of the plants. So that is the purpose of the conducting tissues, right? So now we will study xylem and phloem separately, and we will see what exactly is the function of xylem, what exactly is the function of phloem. Right? So right now we will not talk about vascular bundles in much detail, because as per your 9th grade syllabus, you should know what are these things, but we are not going into the in-depth structural detail of each of these tissues. So that we will do when we will go to higher classes, right? So for now we will start our discussion on xylem. So let us now talk about xylem. So xylem is the complex permanent tissue which is found throughout the plant, and the main purpose of xylem is to transport the water from root to the leaves, right? So that means it actually helps to transport water from root to different other parts of the plants, including leaves. So that is the main purpose of xylem. So xylem is a conducting tissue which will transport water from roots to other parts of the plants, right? So with this, let us try to see what is actually xylem and how does the structure of a xylem look like. So xylem mostly consists of dead cells, because it only helps in conduction, nothing else. So dead cells is enough for that. The elements which it is made up of. So xylem is made up of 4 different types of elements. So the first one is tracheids and vessels. So what are tracheids and vessels? So when you look at it, this is how a tracheid looks like. That means this is elongated structure with tapering ends. And vessels, it will look like any other vessel. It will have a lead-like structure and then a cylindrical structure. So these are tubular structures. So both of them, whether it is tracheid or vessel, both are tubular structure in the form of a tube. They conduct water and minerals vertically. So that means from root, let us suppose if this is a plant. So these are the roots of the plants. So these tracheids and vessels will conduct water and minerals vertically. That means it will just take it straight up, right? Then the next component is Xylem Parenchyma. What is Xylem Parenchyma? So xylem is a complex tissue. Parenchyma is a simple permanent tissue. But parenchyma is what? It is a packing tissue. And what is the purpose of parenchyma? Parenchyma is useful for support, right? So these are the living cells. They store food. Storing food is another important function of parenchyma we saw in the previous slide, right? So xylem parenchyma are the living cells. They will help in storage of food. They conduct water sideways. So now in a tree, if the water is conducted only vertically upwards, do you think that all parts of the plant will get water? It will not get, right? So along with the water being transported vertically, it has to be conducted sideways also, so that it reaches the branches and the leaves, right? So this sideways conduction of water is done by xylem parenchyma. So these xylem parenchyma are living cells, right? They also provide lateral support, and they support the tracheids and the vessels. So they provide lateral support. Correct? Then we have xylem fibers. So what do xylem fibers do? Now these fibers are generally only for support. So these are the dead cells which are used only for support purpose. Right? So the xylem fibers are dead cells and they just provide support, right? Now here, this tracheids and vessels are often together known as hadron. This is a name given to the combination of tracheids and vessels, because the function of tracheids and vessels are quite similar to each other. Both of them are responsible for transportation of water and minerals vertically. Okay, so overall, what did we see? What are the different components of which a xylem is made up of, or the different elements of a xylem? Tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. So now you understand the function of each of them. The purpose of xylem as a whole is to transport water from roots to different parts of the plant. So now this function is divided into the different elements of xylem. So tracheids and vessels, which are together called hadron, will conduct water and minerals vertically. Xylem parenchyma will conduct the water sideways, and xylem fibers will support all of them, right? So here tracheids, when we talk of tracheids and vessels, if you see, they are both tubular structure, just that when you look at the structure of vessels, their diameter is little more than that of tracheids. So they are wider than tracheids, right? Also, if you look at their structure, you can see that there are some simple pits on the entire body of the tracheids, right? So there are some simple pits and some bordered pits. So if you see, there is some bordered pits, that means which has an outer covering also. They are called bordered pits. So what is the purpose of these pits? These pits also help in transportation. So they are small hole-like structure on the entire body of the vessels and also on the body of the tracheids. So these pits are also like canal-like structure, and they also help in transportation. Right. So here you can also look at the structure of the Xylem Parenchyma. So Xylem Parenchyma, again we know about parenchyma. How are they? They are like the cells which are arranged closely to each other, very small intercellular space. They have got cytoplasm, they have got their nucleus. So this is how the Xylem Parenchyma looks like. So you have got some rough idea about the function of a xylem. So it is a conducting tissue which conducts water from roots to different parts of the plant. Now let us talk about phloem. Okay, now before that, let us talk about the main significance of xylem. What is the significance of xylem? There are two significance of xylem. So when I talk of significance, the first significance is transport or conduction, whatever you call it. And the second significance is the annual rings which we generally see in the bark of a tree. They help us to tell us the age of the tree, right? And that branch of science is known as dendrochronology. So dendrochronology is a branch of science which actually deals with estimating ages of old trees, right? And that is possible with by counting the rings on the bark of a tree. So that is another significance of xylem, right? So now let us start our discussion on phloem. So before that, let us try to understand what is the purpose of phloem. What does phloem do? So in xylem is clear to us. Now for phloem, we know that photosynthesis happens and food is prepared by the leaves of the plant. So now food is stored in the leaves in the form of glucose, right? So now this glucose is converted into sucrose, and the sucrose is transported from leaves to other parts of the plant by phloem. So what is the purpose of phloem? So phloem will transport food from leaves to other parts of the plant. So it will transport food, or it will conduct food from leaves to different parts of the plants, right? Now similar to xylem, we will discuss about the different elements which make up a phloem. So phloem are living cells except phloem fibers. So except phloem fibers, all others are living cells. The elements which it is made up of is, the first one is sieve tubes. So let us see what are sieve tubes. Now when you look at the structure of a phloem, you can see here these tube-like structure. So this entire tube-like structure is known as sieve tubes. If I try to draw it simply in a simple form, it is a tube-like structure this way, right? So these sieve tubes help in the transportation. Now, how are they arranged in a phloem? Now, a series of sieve tube elements are joined end to end. So if you see, there are many sieve tube elements which will be joined end to end, and that is how the phloem will be formed. So it helps in transportation of food from one cell to another. So here if you see, there will be small perforations. So this is the sieve tube, and this lead is known as the sieve plate. So here also if you see, this is the sieve tube and this is the sieve plate. So you can imagine it like a cylindrical container with a lead. So that cylindrical container is the sieve tube and the lead is the sieve plate. Now that lead will have many small holes in it. So those holes are the perforations. So here also if you see, the sieve plate will have small holes, and these holes will help in transportation of food from one cell to another. Okay, the next one is companion cells. So what are companion cells? Companion, the word companion means friend, somebody who accompanies you, right? That is known as companion. So companion cells are friends of sieve tubes. Okay, so companion cells are connected to sieve tubes. If you look at it, this is the sieve tube with the sieve plate, right? Now connected to the sieve tube is the companion cells. So if you see here, this cell, these are the companion cells. So these are specialized parenchyma cells. So when I talk of companion cells, they are specialized parenchyma cells. They are elongated, as you can see here. They are elongated. They are thin walled. They have got thin wall like structure. So they are thin walled. And they are connected to the sieve tubes by canals filled with cytoplasm. Canals means again some pit like structure. So these canals are even smaller than pits. So the pits which we were talking about, which are small canal like structure and they help in transportation. So similarly here also you have structures which are even smaller than pits. They actually connect the companion cells with the sieve tube. So this is the sieve tube, this is the companion cell. So here you'll have some small structures which will actually connect the two, right? And those small canals are filled with cytoplasm. Clear, right? Now sieve tubes and companion cells together form the conductive element of phloem. Because in phloem also the main function is conduction. It has to conduct the food from leaves to different parts of the plant. So the conduction is the main function, and that conduction is done by sieve tubes plus companion cells. So we can say that sieve tubes plus companion cells form the conductive element of phloem. So it is in a very similar manner as in case of xylem. Who was the conductive element? In xylem, tracheids and vessels together form the conductive element. Similarly in phloem, sieve tubes and companion cells together form the conductive element. So the companion cells also regulates the metabolic activities of sieve tube elements. So that is why they are known as companions of sieve tubes. The next element is Phloem Parenchyma. So again, we know the purpose of parenchyma. It helps in food storage. So it supports sieve tubes and also stores compounds like starch. So one function is to support the sieve tubes. So as you can see here, this is the Phloem Parenchyma which is present even outside of the companion cells. So this will actually support the sieve tube and it will also help in storage of compounds like starch. And then the last one, that is Phloem Fibers. So fibers, as you all know, these are the dead cells and they give mechanical strength. So even in xylem you had the Xylem Fibers which were dead cells and which gave mechanical support, right? Okay, so now what do we see? Except fibers, all other elements of phloem are living, whether it is sieve tubes or companion cells or Phloem Parenchyma, they are all living cells, right? Now, as far as conduction in phloem is concerned, who do you think plays a very important role? Fibers is only for support. Parenchyma is also to some extent for support and for storage. Companion cells are actually accompanies or helps sieve tubes in conduction. So sieve tubes are the main person who are involved in conduction. Now in sieve tubes also, the perforated plates which are present, so these perforated plates, they actually make the pathway and connects other sieve tubes. So these perforated plates play a very important role in phloem, right? So now you understand what is xylem, what is phloem, what is the purpose of the presence of xylem and phloem in a plant. So xylem and phloem together constitute the vascular bundle, and vascular bundles are responsible for conduction of water, minerals and food to different parts of the plants. Right? So I hope that I have been able to explain you the plant tissues. Right, because now we have come to the end of our discussion on plant tissues. So in plant tissues, what all did we discuss? We discussed the purpose of presence of tissue in a plant. The main purpose is support, right? Another purpose is conduction of nutrients, minerals, water and food materials to different parts of the plant. We talked about the types of tissue, wherein we discussed the meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Meristematic tissue which helps in plant growth, permanent tissue which helps in other activities like supporting the plant, giving it mechanical support, mechanical strength, helping in conduction of minerals and nutrients. And then we have discussed about all the different types and subtypes of plant tissues. So I hope this video would have helped you to understand plant tissues. So now let us quickly talk about a comparison between xylem and phloem. So when I talk of xylem, xylem gives unidirectional support, that unidirectional transport. That means the transport of water takes place only from root towards the upward direction. Right? That means the transport of water does not take place from stem to the root. It always happens from root upwards, right? So it is unidirectional. Whereas in case of phloem, it is a bidirectional transport. That means the food is transferred from leaves to the roots. That means it comes from up to down. Also some leaves which are present in the bottom. So from those leaves it also goes to the upper stems. Right? So that means it comes both ways. It goes upwards, it comes downwards. Right? So in phloem, the transport is bidirectional. Next, xylem transport water and minerals from roots to aerial plant parts. Aerial means the plant parts which are above. Right? In phloem, it transports food and nutrients from leaves to different plant parts. Right? Okay. Xylem, dead tissues at maturity. So when young, they are all living, but by the time the xylem tissues mature, they become dead. In phloem, they are living tissues except the phloem fibers. Except phloem fibers, all other phloem tissues are living. Xylem occurs at center of the vascular bundle. Phloem occurs on outside of the vascular bundle. So what is vascular bundle? Xylem and phloem together are known as vascular bundle. So in that vascular bundle, xylem occurs at the center and phloem surrounds the xylem. So if you look at this picture which is shown here, you will have an understanding of where xylem lies and where phloem lies. So if you see, it is a cross section of this tree. So if you take a cone out of it, you would see that the phloem lies in the outside. You see at the extreme outside is the cork cambium. You remember I talked about cork cambium and vascular cambium, right? So the cork cambium was responsible for lateral growth externally, and vascular cambium was responsible for lateral growth internally, right? So outside one is the cork cambium, and after that you have phloem, then you have vascular cambium, and then you have xylem. So this vascular cambium is actually separating phloem from xylem. So this portion is phloem and this portion is xylem. So xylem is in the inside and phloem is on the outside. So it says that in the vascular bundle, so this xylem and phloem along with the vascular cambium, these entire thing together forms the vascular bundle. So it says that xylem lies at the center of the vascular bundle and phloem lies on the outer side of the vascular bundle. Right? So now it is clear? Okay. So now let us also have a comparison of simple tissue versus complex tissue. So simple tissue, only one type of cell is present. Complex tissue, different types of cells are present. Simple tissue occurs in all parts of plant. Complex tissue occurs only in vascular region, because in complex tissue, what are the types of complex tissue? Only two types of complex tissue, xylem and phloem. So xylem and phloem are only present in the vascular bundles, nowhere else, right? So complex tissue is present only in that vascular region. But simple tissue is present in many places. It is present in the roots, it is present in stems, it is present in leaves, right? Okay. Simple tissue perform a variety of functions. Complex tissue mainly perform conduction, because again here we are only talking about xylem and phloem and they mainly help in conduction. But when we are talking about simple tissue, we are talking about so many different tissues. For example, parenchyma, which helps in photosynthesis, which also helps in floating for aquatic plants. It also forms the packing tissue. Again, when we talk of collenchyma, it gives flexibility to the plants. Sclerenchyma, which gives stiffness to the plants. So they perform many different types of functions. But when we talk of complex tissue, that is xylem and phloem, they are mainly involved in conduction. Right, so these are some of the differences between a simple tissue and a complex tissue. So with this, I will conclude my discussion on plant tissues, and now we will start our discussion with animal tissues. Now, there are many things which I have not discussed in very much detail because that is not required at this level, because right now you are getting exposed to these names for the first time. Right, so it is better that now you understand them, you get an overview of it, you get an idea of what these things are, so that when you go to your higher classes and you will learn all these things in depth, your basics are clear, you at least know what are these tissues, what do they actually do. Right, so that will help you that time. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.